Hello, friends. So, Sam, Witch of the Woods here. Tell me if anyone can't hear me, because this is a new setup I'm trying. So, it's been requested that I do what someone dubbed a Doomsday reading, which, if you saw the post yesterday, when I said I was going to go live, I was going to do a Doomsday reading, and said I was only half kidding. The reason I say I'm only half kidding is because, you know, I don't want to say it's funny to joke about, but it is kind of funny to joke about that maybe this is the crumbling of our society as we know it, and that freaks some people out, others it does not, and yeah, just there's a lot of talk in the energetic, spiritual, psychic communities, you know, call it what you want, about how the current climate is kind of how it is snowballing into something we've never seen before, something we've never witnessed, and probably haven't for a few generations, in terms of, you know, having to deal with something on this scale and seeing our government just fail wildly. And granted, that is, I guess, a personal political point of view, but, you know, I would venture to say, even from a practical perspective, you know, you can look at the numbers and see, you know, a lot of people are dying. We aren't flattening the curve, you know. There's a lot of, despite the reopening that is going to be happening in the Southeast now, there's lots of surveys that still indicate that most people are not comfortable with that, like more than half of people, like almost 70% of people. So this is just kind of looking to see where we are heading between now and, I would say, end of the year. Now and like maybe the election. And that's the thing too, is I know a lot of people in these circles that we all kind of agree that almost no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome is of the election, we will not be surprised if there are riots or a lot of political unrest. Is that the term? Because both sides right now, both supporters on both sides are very, very rabid. No one is going to be happy when the election happens, either way. And so, you know, like I said, that veers more in a personal opinion, but in these circles I travel in, it seems to be pretty shared. And so I thought we'd do a reading on it, kind of see where we're headed, you know, not talk so much about the pandemic itself, just, you know, the climate of our society right now and our government and where all that is headed. And should be interesting. Don't you just love it when they start talking to you right away and you're going, oh, well, that's not good. Okay, so might seem a little off kilter, but I don't really care. I'm using my fairy tale deck, which I have not broken out in a very, very long time. It was what I talked about in the first YouTube video I did. And yeah, as you can see, this is Hansel and Gretel right on the front. But anyway, seems a little paradoxical, I guess, to use something so, whimsical and fantasy driven when we're talking about, like, potentially the purge happening. Hi, Mom. So, okay. So the first thing I'm seeing here is that wild confirmation of the distress and economic impact everything has had. This is very clearly showing. I'll show the cards. I'll try to not make it as long as last time. Anyway, this is Five of Pentacles. So this is very much showing the really profound economic impact everything has had. And that no matter kind of what the people in charge have tried to do, it's still never been the right thing. There's never been, they're still just not doing the things that they need to be doing. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to look out for themselves. And I know in saying this, that probably doesn't really shock anybody. But it's this sense of, the peasants standing outside the window of, the people having the feast and and the warm fire, table full of food. It's very much that gap, and that disparity, that is really the crux of everything right now. And the biggest challenge we're facing is trying to be patient enough and really draw on our inner strength enough to get the fuck through this, which is asking a lot of a lot of people. Disparity, thank you. But this is asking a lot of a lot of people. And some people are in a position where, they are settled enough in however they might be self-isolating, or maybe they are still employed, or, maybe they don't have any underlying conditions that makes them even more worried about possibly contracting something or things like that, So this is really forcing people to draw upon deep wells of inner strength and patience that they find very challenging to access, and understandably so. So, and in addition, this is very much in that card, you saw there's a giant and, like, trying to hang on to a little guy. And I feel like that is very, very representative of this, the 99% versus the 1%, that is very much a challenge that we all face, that gigantic gap in the distribution of wealth. And that has become very, very apparent, and that has caused a great deal of unrest as well. We're beginning to see the first little hints of it, and actually that is spoken to very much in the next card. This is the Four of Pentacles. So what this is saying is this card actually, which I say it's really funny. It's not really that funny, since we're talking about shit getting crazy. But what's really funny about this is that this is about people being greedy. It's about trying to hang on to every last dime that you have. It's penny pinching. And I don't mean that in terms of, like, people being cheap. I mean that in terms of, like, we are seeing on a massive scale how really and truly how greedy the people who are in charge are. And I don't say that to be stating the obvious, because it might not have been obvious to some people up until this point, But this is one of those things that has really kind of like, I know we're seeing a lot of bipartisan stuff now, but this is what is happening has really united everyone in a big way. And, you know, we're kind of seeing these widespread, how these widespread systems don't work anymore. And there is really an eye on, oh, you know, they really are defending only their interests and their interests alone. You know, the maybe the biggest example of that recently is how a lot of those small business loans went to really big corporations and went to, you know, big chains and stuff that technically didn't even qualify. And some of them are giving them back, which is good. But whether that will continue, whether it won't, I mean, you know, if some of these small businesses can get some of these loans, you know, it's going to take a lot of that economic stress off of a lot of people. And there's, you know, but that would be logical, wouldn't it? But anyway, so that's what we're seeing primarily right now. Just that is really at the core of what they do. And it's becoming very visible in this time, which makes a lot of sense. Honestly, admittedly, I don't know a ton about astrology, but with like the retrogrades and some of the other planetary stuff going on, there's very much this sense of like veils being lifted and seeing things for what they are, and like illusions becoming exposed. So this is happening on a wider scale. So anyway, next card that comes up is the Three of Swords. Now, in the traditional deck, this card is lost my train of thought. This card is traditionally called the Heartbreak card. So obviously the tendency is to think that it's romantically inclined, which obviously it can be depending on the context, but that's not this context. However, it's very easily showing us that, you know, we have functioned for so long under a very broken system that has broken a lot of people and stressed immensely a lot of people. And, you know, just in the recent past, with everything going on, people are really beginning to crack. People who believed in our government for a long time, they're being shaken up. People who trusted our government for a long time are beginning to crack. People are seeing that we are not really built on the solid foundations that they might have been led to believe, and this has caused an immense amount of stress. And because it's like, because a lot of those people tend to not believe in much else, or they have a very hollow faith or a very hollow belief in other entities. And by entities, I don't mean like God or anything like that. I mean like well, okay. This will be controversial, but honestly, I don't care that much. So let's take the example of church, let's say. So yeah, like you can have a connection with God, you can have faith in God, you can have trust in God and all of that stuff, you know, because your connection to God is yours alone. And that is solid, and that is real, and that has depth and meaning and importance. However, going to a church is not an inherently, in and of itself, it's not an inherently spiritual or divine, deep connection. Now you can make that, but church is a box with people in it. So you can make it more or you can make it less. But the problem is that a lot of people make it less, and they're very comfortable making it less, because to have like a really profound connection with your higher being, whoever and whatever you believe is outside of yourself, is deeper and more meaningful. I apologize. I know I'm just repeating myself in a little bit because I got distracted. But, you know, just going to church, to show up to church, is not a deeply profound experience. You know, if you're going to church to show up to church, almost like to save face, that's not meaningful. And these are the connections that we're losing. You know, I mean, like, I grew up Catholic, and, like, we did the whole church thing every Sunday, and honestly, like, I remember, like, I sat and colored, and we went because we were supposed to go. And, like, why would you do that, you know? Going to just go is pointless. Yeah, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. You know, again, like, if you find meaning and value in going and showing up for you, then that's why you should go, but not just to save face. So this is the stuff that we see. The people who use these things as kind of like a hollow thing, like, you know, that's just kind of like an exterior that things are cracking in. These are the people who are kind of most stressed by what's going on, and they are kind of the people who are maybe, you know, really, to be honest, losing it a little more. And, you know, you could say it's these extremists, you could say it's other people, you know, I mean, it really is showing up in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. You know, it could be seeing what you see on the news, with people at the Capitol and things like that, but it could just as easily be, you know, these people who are going to the grocery stores and not knowing what to do with themselves and having two grocery carts full of stuff, even though it's not what we're doing right now. But they just don't know how to react, and they don't know what to do with themselves. So yeah. Anyway. Next card is the Three of Wands. So, so this is kind of like if, again, whatever you subscribe to, God, spirit, universe, source, whatever you call it, if they had to give their 2 cents, you know, really and truly, kind of what they're saying is, like, this is like, everything that's happening right now is really a good opportunity. You know, the way that our society is being really shaken up, and our government is being really shaken up, and like, they're totally acknowledging, like, yeah, people are getting whipped into a fucking frenzy. And the funny thing is, though, and again, this is maybe not funny to a lot of people, but the funny thing is that it's not a bad thing to be whipped into a frenzy, because that's a lot of energy. And what you do with that energy will ultimately be, you know, will ultimately dictate your outcome, and whether it's positive or negative, you know, or whether it's all of the above, you know. So we are being presented with a very good opportunity to choose our path wisely. And, you know, when I say we, obviously, I mean, like, again, since we're talking about these sort of bigger institutions, we're talking about they're being shown that the way things are doesn't work, and they are in a prime time to be correcting and renewing and making reparations and doing things that actually support the people they're supposed to be taking care of. Now, whether they will do that or not remains to be seen. And of course, yeah, absolutely. Fear is only useful when it is turned into motivation. Yeah, and, you know, that's, I can't remember who said this. I can't remember who the quote is attributed to, but it says, fear is excitement without the breath. And that might be a little abstract for some people to understand, but basically, like, if you think about when you get excited, like, you have that fiery energy built within you, but because it's usually around something that you want or something that, like, you're okay with, it's very easy to channel that, and it's very easy to, like, approve of that and grasp that. However, you know, but think about it, like, when you're fearful, those sensations that grip your body are very, very similar to excitement, but because it's something that we are not okay with, we can't process that. Our minds can't conceive of how, even in fear and those bodily sensations we get, how akin to excitement they are. So that's a shift in perspective, and that is actually, that could be a whole other video and a whole, that's basically what shadow work is all about. And I'm not going to get into it on here because I could soapbox a long time about it. And like I said, that could be a whole other series of videos. It could be fucking books and shit. So if you're curious and you're interested, by all means reach out to me and I'll be happy to chat with you about it. And actually, on a side note, I actually will be offering something soon that ties into kind of initially approaching shadow work for people who are not familiar with it. So if it's something you might be interested in, again, you know, reach out to me and we can chat about it. But anyway, sorry, to get back to this. So their 2 cents is that, like, we're being really shaken up right now. Government's being shaken up right now. And it can go great or it can go to shit. And we're going to try to find out in the rest of the reading. But they're acknowledging just that there is an immense amount of energy being stirred up in a way that hasn't been before. And it very much ties into, like, those illusions being banished, basically. So next card is the Prince of Cups. And what comes up here is we're looking more at a person, a specific person. I don't know if I was gonna say initially it might be Trump, but I'm not totally sure about that, to be honest. But what this is showing is that there's going to be someone is going to be heavily involved in what we're seeing soon that has a very youthful nature to them. Now, okay, let me back up a minute. I apologize. Give me 1 second. Sorry, my cards got all mixed up. Okay, sorry. I have my wits about me again, ish. So what we're going to see coming up, what I'm seeing isn't Trump, it's someone else. I don't know who exactly it is, but this is someone who's going to kind of step in and really try to even things out for us. And this is someone who has, I want to say, like, a youthful energy, or one of those people who is very young at heart, but simultaneously has maybe some elements of, like, immaturity in them. They're very emotional in that they care a lot, and they fucking give a shit, you know? And it seems like this is someone who people might not expect to be as helpful or as ready and willing to make changes as we might expect. So this person is going to kind of, I want to say it's going to kind of come out of the woodwork. Like I said, it's going to be someone you don't expect. So it's not like, let's just say, for instance, Bernie Sanders, where a lot of people like him and a lot of people know how much he cares, and a lot of people know that, you know, he's trying to help so much because people know him. That's so, but this is someone who will surprise us, I think. So, moving on from that, Knight of Wands is the next card. So, what the guidance is for these people to do, and obviously, you know, these people are probably never gonna fucking see this. But what they need to be doing is they really need to be pausing and genuinely taking stock of where the fuck they are and what the fuck is going on. And, you know, basically, the ideal thing that we're talking about is how, you know, all these figureheads really needing to mine the data and really needing to come back to reality and face the actual things that are going on right here and now in terms of what the death rate really looks like, what is available in terms of testing, you know, is the curve really flattening or not, are any of these efforts working or not, you know, should we be lifting these bans, you know, don't fucking inject disinfectant into your fucking veins, that kind of stuff, you know, come back to reality and deal with it and move forward from there. But there needs to be a real serious acknowledgement of the immense hardship that has been placed on this country and the world, obviously, but we're talking more specifically right here and now about, you know, about us. This is a very self-centered reading. It's about America. But, you know, this is a check yourself before you wreck yourself card. And, I made myself laugh. Sorry. But, yeah, so they need to accept what's happening, you know. It's just like, you know, in any of these anonymous programs where they say you need to admit that there's a problem before you can actually get help. That's kind of the same mentality we're looking at, and that's not something you want with the people who are supposed to be leading you and helping you through a crisis. So, anyway. Next card is Two of Swords. I'm trying to be quicker than I was last time, but so far I'm not doing that well. So, really, unfortunately, this card makes it unfortunately. Unfortunately, they're probably not going to do that, and we're just going to see a lot more of this bipartisan bullshit going on, and it's, you know, it's going to be more of what we're looking at. You're here for it. I know you're here for it. I know you're here for the boogaloo. But anyway, so the immense clashing that we're seeing between both parties and between all of the, you know, I say all of the different classes. There's not even multiple classes, but all of this unrest that is getting kicked up right now is not going to settle. It's going to amplify, and it will be like, it will reach a head, and it will be like fire and ice, or I don't want to say good and evil, but I blanked on polarities, but it's that, you know, that butting heads, that gridlock, and, you know, if you just keep doing this, no one gets anywhere, and that friction and that energy just builds and builds and builds until it explodes. So, awesome. So, next card is Prince of Pentacles. And, you know, this is kind of speaking to this hope that you know, someone is going to rise up that will be powerful enough and strong enough to temper all of the fucking insanity that's going on, and to kind of like move us back in the right direction. And it's not going to be the same person that I was talking about before. It's going to be someone different. I don't know that that person I initially talked about is going to be that successful, but they're going to try. This person, or no, excuse me, this is a hope. This is a hope. This is not necessarily actually a person showing up. There is a hope that there will be someone else who comes out of the woodwork, who can stand up to all these bigwigs, who can, you know, really start initiating the changes we need to be seeing. But it's just a hope. That's the thing. So with how this ends, which is the Two of Wands, so with how this ends, and again, this is like going 6 months out ish. Where are we now? We're in April, so yeah, close to election time. It is possible. It is, I would say, favorable right now that there will be someone who does give people that hope, and it will be something that helps the country feel like they can breathe kind of a sigh of relief. It's not a lot, because there's such a like a long way that we need to go, but it will at least be the start of something. This also, you know, is one of those cards. It actually is really, really close to what we were talking about, you know, all the jazz that Spirit and God and, again, whoever had to say, you know, that energy being stirred up. This is a very energetic card, and it is full of possibility. And where it falls and how it looks is optimistic right now. There is this sense of homecoming. And the way that that might play out for us could very well be, you know, and again, this is very political, and I really don't like politics, even though I'm basically doing a whole fucking reading on it, but that could be someone who gets into power, who can really start making those changes, and really start, you know, moving the country back on course to where, you know, we feel more optimistic as a whole, you know, but it's still very early days. So I am going to pull one more card in it. And what am I going to do? I'm going to use my Alice in Wonderland Oracle deck, just because I like it a lot, and it's a lot of fun. It's really pretty, and I like Alice in Wonderland a lot. But I'll tell you what's really interesting about this deck in particular is, you know, because of the nature of Alice in Wonderland, you know, and she goes down the rabbit hole and everything is topsy-turvy, and you know, there's that one of the stories in Alice in Wonderland is through the looking glass, and you know, that's where we are, people. We are through the fucking looking glass. We are down the fucking rabbit hole. So when in Rome. What can we see around the election? How about that? Let's ask that. What can we see around the election? It's so funny. I see all the little icons popping up, and I can't tell who's making them, but they just make me giggle, and they distract me because I'm that easy to distract. Boop, boop, boop. Immense effort in advance. Okay, cool. So this says immense effort and advance. Keeping up. So what I was asking was, what do we have to look forward to? Kind of like right after the election through the end of the year-ish. And quite optimistically, this actually says it's supportive of what I was just talking about in terms of, you know, kind of getting stuff back on track. But it's going to take so much work to do it. So much work. And there is this sense about it, like there's a melancholy about it, which is, again, like completely understandable, obviously, because, you know, things are fucking hard for a lot of people, you know, and I know that's a pretty grand understatement, but you know, there is going to be this sense of melancholy just because, you know, I'm pretty sure almost all of you are local, so y'all know about the tornado that happened at the beginning of March. It's kind of like that, where like to see the devastation was tremendous and heartbreaking, but also to see people coming together and working to rebuild and to clean up and to help people out, you know, there was still, obviously there was still so much good and so much, you know, best of humanity that came out of that. And this is kind of similar. It's just on a bigger scale, if that makes sense. And, you know, I do get a little bit of a suspicion that some of these fucking crazy people are gonna come out of the woodwork, but overall I think it's gonna be alright. So that's my reading. That's my Doomsday reading. What I'm gonna do is, when I shut this thing down, I'm gonna put in the comments my Patreon. I have a Patreon, and, you know, if anyone's interested, I've got a bunch of different, oh my gosh, memberships? Subscriptions? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember the damn word. I've got a bunch of stuff up there, and, you know, you can subscribe for monthly readings, you can subscribe for weekly readings, you know, personal readings. There's all kinds of cool stuff up there, and so, like, it's very tarot-y and very witchy, and, you know, just some, it'd be stuff just like this, you know. So if you want it on a regular basis, you could sign up for it. And the other thing I'm going to do is, I love you and miss you too, Marissa. Oh, my pleasure, Brecca. Thank you. And the other thing I'm going to do is put my email address down there, just in the event that, you know, you want to donate. You are by no means obligated to donate, but I'll throw it down there just if you're feeling generous and the mood takes you. So thank y'all very much for joining me tonight. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Have a great night. I hope everything's good for you soon. Bye.